Here's a short price list. Formosan squirrel, 800 yen each. Raccoon, 2,000 yen each. Largemouth bass, 300 yen for 2 pounds. You can get paid for noticing certain invasive species. All you have to do is report them to the authorities, no hunting required. Despite being geographically isolated, Japan keeps up with the rest of the world. Just like other countries, it has its share of problematic animals that need to be dealt with. Sure, Australia might say, hold my beer, but hey, this is Japan we're talking about, so the creatures here are exotic and fascinating. You're gonna love this. I unobtrusively remind you not to forget to hit the like button, those who forget, a quick drink of coffee, and let's dive right in. Let's start with squirrels before we get into the exotic stuff. It's weird to think that squirrels could be considered invasive anywhere, since they seem to be, well, everywhere, right? But when it comes to Formosan squirrels, which are native to Taiwan and a few nearby regions, Japan goes into a berserk mode. Originally brought in as pets, squirrels ended up in the wild around 1935. They became feral and multiplied, mostly settling in the Miura Peninsula of Kanagawa Prefecture. Now, it's illegal to import, breed, or transfer these animals, and efforts are being made to exterminate them. It's not just because they're not native and unwelcome. Environmentalists worry that Formosan squirrels could cause serious harm to local species, the ecosystem as a whole, and even people and agriculture. The concerns are justified. As I mentioned earlier, Formosan squirrels start breeding quickly once they're in the wild. They reach reproductive age at about a year old, typically giving birth to 1 or 2 baby squirrels. However, with abundant food and favorable conditions, they can breed 3 times a year, with up to 4 babies per litter. Japan has just the right environment for this to happen. That's why anyone can hunt these animals without a special permit, although authorities still recommend being extremely careful. Ideally, contact professionals and never handle squirrels with bare hands, as they can carry dangerous diseases like plague, tularemia, and leptospirosis. Honestly, you wouldn't wish this on anyone. This is why controlling invasive species is essential. The authorities in Kamakura are set to invest about $46,000 to address the issue of squirrels. They aim to give out cages to locals, put up signs urging tourists not to feed the squirrels, and hire specialists to cull the animals humanely. Regular people catch squirrels and give them to a contractor who removes the threat for around $43 per animal. Back in 2000, when the hunting efforts kicked off, 69 Formosan squirrels were caught in Kamakura. By 2018, their count had steadily climbed to a record-breaking 1,571. Since then, roughly 1,000 squirrels have been taken out each year. Lately, though, the average has gone up. Now it's about 1,500 per year. This is really good news because squirrels cause too many problems, and they breed insanely fast. Plus, the budget isn't enough to deal with them anymore. At least not the amount they allocated at first. But the increased expenses should pay off, because if we don't control the population of Formosan squirrels, people will lose much more. The rising number of Formosan squirrels in Japan could threaten the ecosystem of mountain forests because squirrels feed on woodpecker eggs, tits, and other birds. Too many eaten eggs mean too few wild birds, which ultimately leads to tree loss. In short, it's a lose-lose situation. Agriculture's taking a serious hit too, with lots of fruits like tangerines and grapes getting damaged and entire fruit trees dying because their bark gets stripped. Vegetables like radishes and tomatoes are also being affected. Even cedar and cypress saplings are not spared. Plus, over on Izo Oshima Island, home to the biggest Formosan squirrel population, there have been cases of camellia seeds being eaten up, the raw material for camellia oil, which has been highly sought after in Asian countries for over 2,300 years. There have been cases of power line damage due to Formosan squirrels chewing through electrical and telephone wires. Overall, the number of problems caused by these creatures is so huge that it's hard to see any benefit to having them around. Well, except maybe for tourists. Not the most convincing argument. Good thing these squirrels aren't interested in the iconic Japanese cherry blossoms, but sadly, these recognizable trees still face a threat from the Aromia bungi beetle. Although it's native to China, Taiwan, the Korean Peninsula, and northern Vietnam, this bug was spotted in 2012 in central Japan's Aichi Prefecture. Back then, environmentalists were already concerned, but since then, the beetle has spread throughout the region near Tokyo. Experts believe it might have hitched a ride to Japan along with imported timber, only to cause a staggering number of problems. The beetle quickly spread to 13 prefectures across the country and completely destroyed many beloved cherry blossoms in Japan. When I say destroyed, I mean wiped out entirely. No wonder they labeled this beetle as a specified invasive alien species back in 2018. These beetles settle in cherry and plum trees, feeding on their bark. In severe cases, infestation can lead to the death of the tree, sparking concern among experts. In some areas, entire rows of cherry trees have been cut down due to beetle infestations, but that doesn't stop the beetles because, well, they keep multiplying. This species has a habit of laying eggs, anywhere from 300 to 1,000, on cherry, plum, peach, and persimmon trees. The larvae spend 1 to 2 years there, munching on the inner part of the trunk, weakening and ultimately killing the tree. Also, the larvae feed along the path of nutrient flow. Essentially, the infected tree will wither away due to malnourishment, being eaten from the inside out over a span of 3 years. Japan is just perfect for these beetles because there are no bees here, which are their natural predators. But there are plenty of tasty trees around. Considering the iconic status of cherry blossoms and Japanese plum trees as top tourist attractions in Japan, this aggressive insect poses a significant threat. It's not just about tourism. It's heartbreaking to witness these beautiful trees dying off. Plus, the beetle's activity could seriously affect plum cultivation in the country. There's a solution to the problem, but it's going to require a hefty amount of time, energy, and money. First up, they need to use pesticides to eliminate the beetle larvae, and then chop down the seriously damaged trees to stop the infection from spreading further. Japan's government has issued a special guidebook explaining how to spot and get rid of the beetle, while environmentalists emphasize the need for collective action to eliminate the pest. Just picture the sheer scale of the task. Every single tree needs to be checked by everyday people. Let's take a moment to appreciate how helpful technology is. Case in point, the city government of Akaruno introduced a new system. Now, if locals come across rot or a mature insect larva, they can pull out their smartphones, scan a QR code, snap a pic, and send it along with the location. After that, tree experts step in to handle it. Well, financial incentives also play a role. Since 2019 in Oyama Tochigi Prefecture, the city government has been offering 500 yen for every 10 dead adult beetles. That's about $3.20. The city of Sakai in Osaka is openly asking people to report if they find beetles and promises them a free gift in exchange for a photo and description of where they spotted it. They're also insisting on getting rid of the beetles after documenting the sighting. Meanwhile, Tokushima Prefecture recently started offering 500 yen for each beetle turned in. So if you're up for it, you can make some decent cash by catching beetles. Or the red swamp crayfish. Though I couldn't find the exact rates, these creatures were first brought over from New Orleans to Kamakura, Japan back in 1927. And now they've spread all over the Japanese islands. By the 1950s, the red swamp crayfish had become one of the most well-known invasive freshwater invertebrates. It's no surprise, really. These crayfish are famous for their adaptability and aggressive behavior. However, it wasn't until June 1st, 2023 that Japan banned the import and sale of these crayfish, though it seems a bit late, because the crayfish have already been wreaking havoc in local ecosystems, and fines for violators or even possible imprisonment of up to 3 years are unlikely to stop the spread of the invasive species. By the way, the fine is pretty hefty, up to $19 million. But crayfish don't really care about this. They're just multiplying like crazy and causing serious damage to the ecosystem by eating fish and aquatic plants. Just so you get how many of these invasive animals we're talking about, in Japan they've got crews setting up traps for these crayfish. And get this, in under 2 hours they caught more than 70 of them. Naturally, local crustaceans suffer from the abundance of invasive species. What surprised me the most was the damage that crayfish cause to rice crops. They make holes and munch on the roots of rice plants, which is why the government sees them as agricultural pests. Fair enough, I guess. Today, the Environment Ministry has kicked off a project to promote the fight against crayfish. This includes working with sources, conducting interviews and surveys, forming task forces with experts, and developing standard fighting strategies. Basically, it's all about empowering regular people to join the fight alongside the experts, because it's clear that specialists alone won't cut it. By the way, along with the crayfish hunt, the ministry also mentioned catching pond sliders. In some parts of Japan, you can even make some pretty decent money out of it, considering it's turtle hunting we're talking about, not something fast and aggressive. Catching from 0 to 5 turtles will bring you 10,000 yen or $64. From 6 to 15 turtles, 20,000 yen or $128. From 16 to 25 turtles, 30,000 yen or $191. From 26 to 35 turtles, 40,000 yen or $255. 36 and more turtles, 50,000 yen or $320. However, Japan's turtle troubles don't stop there. Back in 2014, alarming reports started popping up about an increase in the population of snapping turtles, posing a threat to some delicate ecosystems in the country. Snapping turtles are originally from America, but in the 1960s they became pets in Japan. Eventually, like squirrels and many other invasive species worldwide, they escaped into the wild and found out they really liked Japan. Now it's officially recognized as an invasive species. Breeding, keeping, transporting, and releasing snapping turtles are banned by law, and not just because they bite. These massive omnivorous aggressive turtles can move fast and break through dams. They eat birds, fish, and even weeds, tearing through fishermen's nets and leaving them without their catch. Their relentless hunting of local animals seriously threatens the entire ecosystem. Snapping turtles also have jaws that make them a real threat to humans, so finding people willing to deal with these turtles is tough. They can grow up to 3 feet long and weigh about 77 pounds. Plus, unlike many other turtles, these ones can strike quickly and with great force. Yet there are some brave people out there. These fearless people catch turtles using traps. Then they put them in freezers, a method considered simple and humane for ending their lives. Is all of this actually working? Well, Chiba Prefecture started trying to catch turtles in 2007, but by 2015, the population of these invasive creatures had swollen to about 16,000. In the same year, 2017, a 3-year strategic intensive campaign was launched to capture turtles, with an annual quota exceeding 2,500. The prefecture also acquired around 700 additional traps to the already available 400. Additionally, there was a plan to cull 18.2% of the presumed turtle population every year, aiming to eventually bring their numbers down to zero. And it seems to slowly start making a difference. The population of snapping turtles in Japan has started to decrease, all thanks to the capture campaigns. Unlike other invasive species, regular people aren't involved in getting rid of these animals. It's just too risky. Things took a different turn with the mongooses. They became a serious issue in Okinawa after being brought in to deal with snakes. Seemed like a good plan, but it turned out people hadn't really figured everything out. Actually, they didn't think at all. Mongooses are active during the day, while the snakes they were supposed to eradicate are nocturnal. So basically, the predators and potential prey never even crossed paths. The mongooses were fortunate to be omnivores, so they didn't starve. They feasted on bugs, birds, reptiles, mammals, and even fruits, and they were quite voracious. None of Okinawa's native animals were ready for that. Slow-moving reptiles and flightless birds have become easy prey for mongooses. As a result, over the past 20 years, the population of some birds has decreased by 40%, not to mention the problems caused by unique local species. Initially, 30 mongooses were introduced to combat snakes, and at their peak, there were around 10,000 of them. Serious efforts to eradicate them began in 2000, and by then, the mongooses had already caused significant harm to local wildlife, gobbling up defenseless local creatures. By 2022, approximately 20,000 traps had been set, and by 2023, the number of caught mongooses exceeded 32,000. Naturally, while some were caught, others kept on breeding. Nevertheless, Japanese authorities are confident that they've almost completely wiped out the mongooses. This was made possible only through consistent efforts, including the inspection of over 30,000 traps. These traps are systematically placed and closely monitored for their condition. In short, the Japanese have taken the eradication of this species very seriously. Automatic cameras are used to collect data on mongoose habitats, and people even use dogs to find them. The aim is to keep mongooses from getting used to traps and figuring out how to evade them, so they always come up with new methods. Of course, there are specialized teams for capturing mongooses. One was formed in 2005, starting with 12 members. Now it's grown to around 35 people, all pros. They head into the woods daily to protect their country's nature, rain or shine, even with venomous snakes around. Yep, those snakes haven't gone anywhere. Sounds pretty heroic. Maybe Netflix should make a movie about it. Oh wait, scratch that idea. Please make sure you hit the like button. If you did, then see you later.